views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Welcome, good people of the Bronx and beyond. My name is Henry Ovalles, and I'm your host for Life in Art. On this show, we will bring you engaging and personal conversations with artists with whom you may not be familiar, people who have been working on their craft for at least a decade and are at a crossroads where passion meets necessity. We'll discuss creativity and inspiration with our guest artists, but also find out what it takes to balance the struggles of practical life while pursuing their passions. Our guest today is a talented writer who has written several plays for the Bronx Repertory Company, among others. He holds a Master's of Fine Arts in Dramatic Writing from NYU, and recently, Love in All the Right Places, his work as both playwright and director, has also been showcased by the Ophelia Theater Group. Today, we learn about Juan Ramirez's life in art.
What? What's so funny? Look, I know you think I'm cute, and I can tell by the way you smile, so I know.
Oh God, don't flatter yourself.
Come on.
What do you think is gonna happen?
What do you mean? We're gonna eat, and then we're gonna get full?
No, I mean overall. What do you think is gonna happen if I leave with you? Like 20 years down the road. Where are you going?
I think we date for a while. Fall in love, of course. Me first, maybe. You know, they say girls fall in love faster, but
Cigarette.
I'm a bit of a softie.
This isn't healthy, you know.
I'll meet your parents. You'll meet mine. I'll ask your dad for your hand, and your little nephew or something will be ring bearer. Do you have a little nephew?
Yeah, I do actually.
See?
You coming back?
And we're here with my friend Juan Ramirez. Juan, we've been trying to get you on the show since like episode 1. Finally, we get you in the chair. Your people and my people, meaning you and me, weren't able to connect on dates.
Something about the green rooms here weren't clean yet. So
Oh, is that what it was? Okay, we're not up to your standards. No, in any case, thanks so much for being on the show, man. We really appreciate it.
It's good to be back here at BronxNet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was an intern here and
All right,
segment.
see, we're starting right
writer,
away here.
So that was something. It's nice. I came into the building. I was like, wow, look at all these cool things.
Yeah.
The multimedia center. First time I've been here, so that was.
Right, so you're back to the old stomping grounds.
Yeah.
So you and I, have a history together artistically. We've, acted in plays together. You've directed me in things. I've had the pleasure of directing you. We actually co-produced a show off Broadway together some years back.
Yeah.
So we'll talk a little bit about all that, but let's start with the beginning of your journey as a human being. Where were you born? Where did you grow up, Juan?
Here in the South Bronx, right where the Legionnaire disease is spreading. In that same area.
Isn't that under control now? I think maybe.
Yeah, the government always has things in control.
All right, you're not a conspiracy theorist at all.
No,
right?
not at all.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the South Bronx.
South
My whole
Bronx.
life.
All right.
I've hung out in many other areas in New York City, but mainly.
But that's yeah.
Yeah.
And as far as schooling, elementary school, middle school, high school, which where did you go?
I went to middle school about 2 blocks from where I lived, Catholic school, and I went to high school Catholic school as well. Well, the first one I went to, I technically got kicked out, and then I went to Cardinal Hayes.
Okay.
And then Lehman, and then NYU.
All right, let's go back to technically being kicked out because I need to hear the story. What happened? How do you get kicked out of a?
I don't remember. It was a long time ago. It was just.
Okay, you were doing some things that you shouldn't have been doing.
No, well, you know what's funny? Not at first, but then I didn't help the situation. So.
All right, you don't want to give us details though.
Nah.
All right, the statute of limitations isn't.
Yeah, it's already expired. Yeah, it's went over.
All right, and then Cardinal Hayes for high school.
Then Cardinal Hayes, yeah. Then I graduated there, and then Lehman, and then NYU.
All right, so pretty much a Catholic upbringing.
Yeah, pretty much. My family is very. Yeah, they are Catholic. They're very Catholic.
How often were you going to church as you were growing up? Every Sunday
I
or more
went
so
every
for holidays?
Sunday until I went to high school. I think I reached the age of enlightenment like 16. maybe 22, a little later than that.
Right.
For me. But most of my family are Catholics. Maybe not the most practicing, but yeah,
Right.
yeah.
And you're not anymore.
No,
Okay.
I just, yeah, no. No.
Yeah, no.
No.
All right. And talk to me a little bit about your family life. So, brother, any siblings? Just you have one brother, right?
Yeah, I have one little brother. He's, matter of fact, anytime now he's going to be a second lieutenant in the Army.
Oh, is that
So
right?
that's going to be, that's cool. That's like great. I'm in the art, and I still think he's braver than I am. You know what I mean? That's wild. So yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Huh. I didn't even realize that he was serving.
Yeah. He's
For how long now?
He has to graduate. He has to graduate doing that,
Yes.
and then from there he has to do another 3-4 month training, something like that, and then
Okay.
from there he goes.
All right. So just one brother, and you're the older brother, yes?
I'm the other one. Yeah.
And what's the age difference between the two of you?
I know there's five
5
years. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
so that's a
5 years.
nice gap
Yeah,
there.
it's pretty nice. Yeah. It's
Right. And then your parents still together?
Yeah, my parents are still together. Yeah. My mother is an eBay flipper, obsessed with pigs. That's how I describe
that
her.
right?
Yeah. My father works for the Archdiocese. He's like a conservative liberal kind of. Maybe he's just traditional Latino. But that's how I see my that's how they are.
Conservative, liberal, or traditional Latino?
Yeah, something
Equal.
Like that. Yeah.
Okay. And what's the story with them? What's your ethnic background? What's the makeup there?
Oh, here we go. I'm Puerto Rican, Guatemala, Spaniard, and something else. Maybe Irish.
Okay.
I don't know.
And can you break that up for me? So on your mother's side?
My mother's Guatemalan, but she also has had some family who has Spaniard in her. My father's Puerto Rican. He also has some Spaniard in him.
Okay.
Where the other stuff comes from, we're not too sure.
Okay. Have you ever been to Guatemala or Puerto Rico?
Yeah.
You
When I
visited
was-
both?
Yeah, when I was like 16, 17, I went to Guatemala.
Oh, so
yeah,
later in your life.
Yeah, I climbed up this volcano they have there, active.
Oh,
It was
wow.
insane.
And did you go with your family, like with your mom?
Yeah, I
And
went.
Did
I
you
went
visit
with my
family out there?
grandmother. Yeah, I went with my. I've been raised mostly with my father's side of the family.
Okay.
So I went to go visit the first time my mother's side of the family.
Right.
Her father, her mother, my grandfather, and yeah, that was an adventure. Yeah, that was wild. I loved it. Yeah, it was really
Awesome.
cool. Yeah.
Awesome. So now talk to me about when you got bit by the artistic bug. I mean, right now you sort of identify yourself as a playwright more than anything else, but I know, and many of the people that know you and your work know that you're a very talented actor in your own right. So when did the bug hit you? When did art come into your life?
Well, it was screenwriting first.
Oh,
it's always been screenwriting. When I was a kid, I was really I sort of think about like a lot of artists sort of when you ask them that, they break it down into two things, and it's usually typically the first time they figured out they could do something, and the second time was when they realized they were good at it, right?
Right.
So that happened to me, but it was like maybe like a 15-year gap in between both.
Really?
So when I was a kid, I mean, I was always very visual. You know, I was draw stories, play with my cousins, make up stories, all this kind of stuff, action figures, whatever it was. But it wasn't until maybe 3rd, 4th grade, my best friend at the time, who was being a prick now that I realized, he wanted to do an in-class drawing competition. Right?
Okay.
So I was, drawing, doing visual, whatever. And he said, okay, so the best one will win, whatever, the class will decide. So I do like this 5-page like manuscripting with characters and story and all this stuff. And he brings in like this wrinkled loose leaf with like this regular simple drawing, but everyone loved it. It was good. So I was bummed out for the rest of the day.
He won?
But he won. But I noticed that everyone else was talking about my story, what happened in my story, what the characters did. Somebody said, oh, this should be an actual comic. And that's when I realized I was a writer, that the drawing didn't really matter.
And this was 3rd or 4th grade, you're
This
saying?
was like 3rd, 4th grade. Yeah, I was really young. Then it wasn't until I went to Lehman when I met, he's like the savior of my life, William M. Hoffman, who's a professor here, playwriting professor, as you know. And I was taking a playwriting class with him, and there was a moment in the class, I can't recall what the moment was, but he felt he had to say to me, very matter of the fact, you should write. And when an award-winning playwright tells you you should write, you listen. And he gave me the confidence, the permission to sort of, I've always written seriously, but I never really thought I was smart enough, talented enough, worthy enough to write.
Until you really received that validation from...
Yes, yeah, exactly.
That's great, and that's happened a couple of times actually on the show with some of the guests where someone talks about an influential figure like a professor or a teacher that really turned them on. And actually William Hoffman is the second time he's been mentioned on the show. We had Angel Dillamuth on, and he talked about how Bill inspired him as well. So that's great.
Yeah.
All right, so let's actually wrap up this segment, and then when we come back, I want to dig a little deeper into you as an actor and a playwright and sort of your artistic life thus far. So we'll be right back with more about Juan when we return. All right.
People think I'm trash, but they're wrong. Today I'm just an aluminum can, but one day I could be a stadium.
Teachers today are finding new ways to instill old lessons, proving that greatness can be found in everyday places and that you don't need to be famous to be unforgettable.
Welcome back to A Life in Art. We're here with playwright, director, and friend, Juan Ramirez. So Juan, right? We're friends. So we had talked about sort of you receiving validation from your playwriting, screenwriting professor, and that made you think like, hey, maybe I can do this. And you talked about the story of, realizing early on that maybe writing was your thing and not so much drawing. So talk to me a little bit more about then your, higher education, Lehman College. You came for a degree in theater. Was it that you majored, or was it?
Yeah, major in mass comm. I'm theater and mass comm.
Oh, theater and mass, a double major of theater, mass communications. Okay. And while you were, during your time as an undergrad at Lehman College, you were writing throughout, because I know that you were acting as well. Talk to me a little bit about, how those work together, or which you prefer, or if it's just different for you.
I was always writing since I was young, even through high school.
So that's your thing.
Yeah, I was writing film scripts since I was like maybe 14, 15. I would like get books on my own and read up before I went to school for it. Then when I came here, I didn't even want to come to college. I was just sort of like, I don't know what I'm gonna do with myself. And it wasn't until that playwriting class with Bill who sort of just pushed me. And then from there, again, Bill, he said, if you want to be a better writer, perform. Because nothing like being the vessel that you put words into, knowing what it's like, to do that. And I decided, well, that's true. So I auditioned for the first thing that was up that semester. I think that was Othello with Ken Ross.
Yeah, directed by Ken Ross. May he rest in peace, yeah.
And I said, oh, this is cool. This is kind of fun. And I'm doing all this character work and all this method stuff before I even know what that was. And then I was like, oh, okay, maybe I should, keep trying this. This is kind of fun. And more people kept telling me, yeah, keep going for it. It wasn't until I met Marilyn Sokol, the distinguished lecturer who was here, and I think for all of us, she sort of changed my life about acting. Because at first it was about acting to make the writing better. When I met her, it was like acting for acting.
Right, and then
really
you dug deeper into that and wanted to explore that more.
Yeah. Because what acting for me, I'm sure for all of us, but especially for me, the more I perform, the more I go to another character, the more I find myself. And that's something that I love, because and in consequence, it does make me a better writer.
Right.
So that's something that.
Right, and then you also continued the evolution into directing plays also.
Yeah.
So how did that come about?
Well, it was out of necessity at first. Here at Lehman, there's just, because I wanted to do film. I've always wanted to do film at first.
Right.
So when I came here, even when I was taking the playwriting class, I was like, oh, sort of like plays, okay, whatever. But there's such a great resource here at Lehman for there's an amphitheater, there's 2 black boxes, and it's just like, I can't let this go by. I have to try this. And when your class graduated, it was sort of like, who am I gonna get to direct? Who am I get to do this? Well, I'm gonna do it myself. I can't wait. I can't wait around. Just do it myself.
Right.
And that's just sort of how it happened. I sort of just jumped into the seat and
let me try it.
Yeah, yeah. And I just
what was the first project that you directed?
What was the first thing I directed? I think the first thing, I want to say Glengarry.
Oh, so Glengarry Glen Ross, the David Mamet production, was your first directing?
I think so, yeah.
And then later you went on to direct plays that you had written yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, in that production of Glengarry Glen Ross, which you cast me in, and you had, pretty much as far as the community from the theater program at Lehman College, you picked the who's who.
Yeah.
So it was sort of, we said an all-star cast. But it's interesting that you were able to do that as a first-time director. I mean, Glengarry Glen Ross, everybody wanted to do it because it's a
Right.
great play.
Yeah,
But also
yeah.
people, you know, there says something about you that these actors trusted you as a first-time director to take this on.
Yeah.
And there was, you know, just a seriousness to you that we were able to see. Has that always been there?
Yeah. It's interesting because certain different people at different stages of my life describe me differently, which is funny. Some people might say it's quiet, some people might say it's loud. It's interesting. But at that time, I was very like, I needed to be 100% committed to all this because I didn't know what I was doing with myself at Lehman. I was finding myself, and I wanted to have a voice, but I didn't know if I had a voice and all these sort of things. So I needed to direct other plays. I needed to experiment with other characters to see if this is what I really wanted to do. You know, because if I couldn't do other stuff, there's no way I was going to do my own stuff.
Right.
So it was sort of like I had to give myself that push and take it seriously, not mess around. And that was sort of my motto, and that helped me a lot. It did. It keeps me focused.
Right, and in your mind, even, you know, as serious and as you fell in love with acting, you know, after taking classes with Marilyn Sokol and all of that, still as you were directing and acting, do you think you were still gearing that towards making you a better writer, as a playwright, screenwriter?
Oh yeah, definitely. Because that's something like blood and bones of it. It's just it is. Because I don't think, no, I know for sure I wouldn't be where I'm at with it without it. Yeah,
Right.
Definitely.
All right, so then talk to me about, you finish your undergrad career and then you decide that you're going to try out grad school, and what happens then?
For the person who didn't want to go to school, decided why not grad school? I was speaking again to Bill and Marilyn. They were telling me, look, if you want to pursue more, go to grad school. And Ira Glass has this nice little speech where he talks about like, when you first, especially for writing, I think it's with all art, especially for writing. When you first start, you suck. That's just how it is. You suck. For a long time, you're going to suck. But your taste is good. So whatever you like, it's good. So all the art and all the stuff you sort of produce just doesn't measure up to your taste yet. And you got to keep going until the two match. And that's where I was at. I needed the both to match. I wasn't quite there yet, and I needed more education.
Right.
And I really wanted that for my craft, for my writing particularly. And when I spoke to Bill and I spoke to Marilyn, they were telling me, you know, apply to this and that in this school. And I was just like, I barely got into Lehman. There's no way. And I applied, and well, that's a story. I keep going.
Yeah, yes, I want to hear the story. Please keep going.
So when that's funny. When I gave myself the, again, confidence to decide, okay, I'm gonna go to grad school. I'm gonna tackle these big schools. Right? I set my applications out, and one of them, I felt good. I almost got into one of the big ones that sort of gave me a nice little confidence boost. And then
Name names. Which big one?
No.
Okay.
And then the one of them I got into was our colleagues that would go to. That was that one. And then there was NYU.
Right, and NYU Tisch, the graduate program, Tisch School of the Arts.
Said no.
That was they said no.
They said no. That was the one I wanted. They
Right.
said no. So I bummed out. So I was like, okay, fine. What I'm gonna do? A few days later, I get this email saying, oh, apply to Tisch, and I'm like, I did. And then it's like, oh, well, click here, whatever. Okay. Apply to Tisch Asia. So Tisch Asia, what is this? What is that? So there's a Tisch in Singapore. So I go, and the email was very like, you should apply. We already have your materials. Just give it permission. You know, come on, apply. So I'm like, Tisch Singapore. I'm a dramatist. I want to work on art, so I'm gonna go to Singapore to do that.
I'm gonna leave New York
City to go to. Okay, so I did more research, right? And I'm like, you know, who lives in Singapore, right? Arrogant New Yorker, American. And so I said to myself, let me do more research though. Let me, you know, open my mind, right? And ever since I was younger, especially in high school, I remember hanging out downtown. I remember seeing these kids with these gray shirts and these purple letters, right? And I used to say, you know, it must be cool to feel like I'm that smart, I'm that talented, I'm that worthy to be at this school, and that my future's hopeful. I've always had, I remember that image vividly. And I said, you know what? I'm going to go across the world and do it. 2 weeks later, I gave him my first deposit. And I just sort of just went for it. It was very like...
So you decided to go to Singapore for the next, this was a 2-year program?
2-year program, yeah. And NYU tells us stories more closer to what I sort of tell. I mean,
Right.
MFA program is like sort of like dating. You know, you gotta every program has their thing, and you sort of fit into that mold. And
Right.
NYU is my mold.
Huh.
Yeah.
All right, so I think that's a great point to actually take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about what life in Singapore is like.
Oh, yeah.
So don't go anywhere. We'll be back with more from Juan right after this break. Singapore.
We finally bought a place.
You seriously have enough saved to do that?
We've been putting a little aside each month.
So at the end of the month, we have nothing left to save. How is my account overdrawn?
When it comes to financial stability, don't get left behind. Get tools and tips for saving at feedthepig.org.
People think I'm trash, but they're wrong. Today, I'm just an aluminum can, but one day, I could be a stadium.
And we're back on A Life in Art with Juan Ramirez. So Juan, let's go right into it. Singapore, you get accepted to NYU, but NYU Singapore.
Oh yeah.
And you pack your bags and you head out over there, and then what happens?
I got my butt kicked. I went to grad school to really get myself, I say butt kicked. I got myself to the level where I wanted my craft to be. I got that push, and
Right.
that's like I think of it like a boot camp. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Grad school's like a dominatrix. All right, she beats you. Okay.
Okay.
When it's done, you feel good about yourself. You go back in, you get beat again, and it keeps going and keeps going. Safety word is Sally Mae. but that's what I needed. That's what I needed. I needed that sort of like, you know, kick and that time, because even here at Lehman,
Right.
I had Bill's one person, you know. Over there, I mean, it was the really first time I got to sit in a room with just writers.
Right.
And sit in a room with just people who think like me,
Right.
go through the process like me, want to do what I want to do. Specifically.
And talk to me specifically about, you know, being on another continent. Do you think that actually helped to, like, you know, I mean, there's nothing else to concentrate on. I mean, grad school as it is, wherever you go, even if it's here in the States, you got to concentrate on it. But being on the other side of the world, it's like I would think that, all right, this is really what I'm here to do. Was that sort of your experience?
Yes, and that is what I really liked about it, because it was like I really went to a whole nother world. You know, I was really put somewhere else, and I got to really concentrate on what I wanted.
Yeah.
I wasn't distracted by Singapore or the other places I went to. It was kind of nice. I missed the inspiration New York gives me. New York is very alive, you know, when it comes to art. You know, you go on a train, someone's singing,
Right.
someone's talking to themselves, there's a monologue, you know, whatever it is, you find these things. Singapore's not quite like that. So that was sort of the struggle I had. But besides that, it was nice. It was I got to really concentrate on what I was doing. I had no distractions.
Right.
It was good.
Now, if you allow me to, you don't want me to, you know, say why you got kicked out of school or which other schools you were going to, but let me dig a little bit into your personal life. So, you know, your girlfriend, you know, is a mutual friend, Christy Reynoso, who's a talented actress in her own right. So what did that do, being on the other side of the world for, you know, 2 years, do to your personal life with that? How did you manage it?
It sucked. It was just like, it was tough. She got to go out there. I had her
So
come
she
out
visited you there a couple
for a while.
times.
She stayed for like 2 months. I think every time she went out, like twice.
Right.
It was tough. Like whenever anybody asks or says that to me, like, well, what is that like? It's tough. You got to just sort of, you got to line up your priorities.
Right.
That's one. You know, if your priorities are what you say they are, and you come through, and it's fine. It'll work out. You know, it works itself out. It's hard. It's not easy. But it works itself out, and I think that's what was important. I mean, she knew what I wanted to do, you know, and I would probably go to Mars for it, you know. So she was like, okay, go do it. See when you come back. You know what I mean? That was sort of, you just gotta have that understanding.
Yeah, and you survived it, which is great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I should say that I actually, you know, supported you as well and visited you in Singapore.
Oh, right, that's right.
For one day.
You did, for one day.
I had a layover. Our mutual friend Sam Rivera and I were doing this, you know, let's see the world trip where we went to Australia and New Zealand and some other places. And then we had a layover in Singapore while you were there, and you took us out to see the city a little bit and eat some chicken rice, which is just amazing. Did you ever get tired of eating chicken rice through your 2 years that you were there? Because it was really good.
I did. No, I didn't. No, I didn't.
That's good
I
stuff.
didn't. Yeah, because they mix it up with different things too. So no, I really didn't.
All right, so you just
Yeah,
do different variations.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this question, and I asked it actually of a guest, Angel Dillamuth, that we mentioned before, with terms to grad school. Since I work at Lehman College in academia, I get a lot of students that come asking me, you know, what's the next step? Should I go to grad school? And I always feel like it's a personal, you know, decision, and it depends on where you are in life and all of that. But for you specifically, would you recommend it to someone else based on your experience?
You know, it's what you said, and I feel like I'm not going to answer the question, but it's really what you said. It's really individual, because you have an individual who's an artist, right? And they can only grow to the degree in which the resources they have. For some people can get together and make a theater company go downtown. Some people can't. Some people have school. Some people need that sort of boot camp attitude. You know what I mean? And so it really depends on the person. You know, it really depends what they want, because there's no degree in the world that's worth its price tag. There's not, because I think that's what it comes down to at the end of the day, money. But your craft is worth the time. You know what I mean? And so you really have to decide how you're going to do that.
Yeah.
What's your answer? You know? And I mean, it really, I mean, nobody tells Meryl Streep, was Yale a waste of time? You know what I mean? Like, it all depends on the person. It depends on what you need and what you get from that experience too. I think what I tell people is that if you decide grad school, you have to take it seriously. It's not another 4 years of some school and then go party. It's like it's grad school. It's the next level.
Yeah, and I mean, the financial investment is significant also, so hopefully you would take it seriously.
Yeah, because there are some people who they think about the money, and I say, you know, if you're gonna be up all night thinking about how I pay back, don't do it, because that's gonna be your priority. If not, if you can get that bill in the mail and say, oh, well, you know, I have to do overtime this week. Next week I'll work on my monologue. Then do it. Right. You know what I mean? It really depends. It's really on the individual.
So in the last couple of minutes that we have, just talk to me about, you know, what you're doing now. What are the survival jobs that are, you know, subsidizing your art, and what's going on with your art right now? I
tell all artists, okay, there's ways to make money. There is, okay? Begging, crime, lend your body for science, whatever it is. But I think the best advice I got was to find a skill. And I think for me, that's something I'm still even learning. Recently when I'm teaching. That's a big thing for me, and it's a new world for me too as an artist.
Right.
But if you're an artist, you just have to grab a job, you know, and grab a skill, so that whatever it is, you can always sort of lean on it when you need it. For me, it's been teaching. I've been doing a lot of. I teach with drama club. I teach incarcerated youths at Horizon Juvenile Detention Facility in the South Bronx. Oh, wow. And I do improv with them, some script writing, and that's been great.
Great, and how long have you been doing that?
I've been doing that, I just finished about a year. I think last month was a year.
Right. Yeah. And then as far as the writing, you're just always continuing to, you know.
Yeah, I'm always trying to make sure I'm writing, or at least for writers, you're either physically writing or you're here writing, you know, so I'm doing one of the two all the time,
Okay. All right, Juan, I think that'll do it, man. Is there anything that I left out that you want to talk about?
No, everything. Don't vote for Trump. Other than that, that's it. Yeah.
I think that's a great way to finish it. So thanks, man. Thanks to Juan for sharing his life and art with us. And thanks to all of you for joining us today. We definitely want to encourage you to connect with us on social media. Visit us on Facebook and YouTube at A Life in Art, and Instagram and Twitter at A Life in Art TV. We'll be back with more stories from emerging artists when we return with A Life in Art.